Welcome, I'm Dale Davidson. You're watching My Story, and each and every week at this time we put together what we think is going to be an interesting story for you. We certainly have done so this week. We are pleased to have as our guest Nick Gaglia, who is a filmmaker and an activist. He's done a lot in his short life, and we're going to talk to him a little bit about that, and also about his life as a youth and what happened to him in a reform school. Nick, thanks for joining us.
Dale, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it very much. Now, you're a New Yorker?
Yes,
originally?
Born and raised.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And tell us about what you've been doing lately. I understand you're a filmmaker. Your first movie was called Over the GW.
GW stands for George Washington Bridge, which connects New York to New Jersey.
There you go. And Aaron Bacon.
Yes.
Is your second film. Tell us a little bit. I understand that Over the GW is based loosely on your life.
Yeah.
Tell us about the movie itself, the plot, and then we'll talk a little bit about how you got the thing made, because that's always interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, the film's called Over the GW. It's based on my 2.5-year experience in a tough love drug treatment center in Secaucus, New Jersey.
Right.
It was called Kids of North Jersey. When I was 13, I started experimenting with pot and alcohol. By the time I turned 14, completely out of control. I needed help. I needed therapy. I needed treatment. And my father saw a commercial on TV promoting a drug rehab that seemed like a perfect fit for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nearby us. We lived in the Bronx. It was right over the George Washington Bridge in Secaucus. And my mother told me one day, hey, we're going clothing shopping at the outlets. I love buying clothes.
Sure.
So I'm like, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
We get in the cab, we go over the bridge, we get into Secaucus, we're heading down the road, and Ralph Lauren, hey mom, wait, stop
It's
here.
right here.
Oh no, we'll go to that one later. Yeah, so we keep on, wait, Tommy Hilfiger, no, we'll go, we'll catch that one on the way back. Okay.
Right.
We keep on going, and then next thing you know, there's nothing but warehouses all over the place. I'm like, where are we? We keep on going down this long road, and when we get to the end of it, we reach a fence with barbed wire and a no trespassing sign. We go inside, and it was a no frills building, and we're in a parking lot. And she's like, "Oh, this is where we're going." And, at that point, I'm like, oh, "This must be where the really exclusive stuff is." She's got the hookup. We go inside, and the second we stepped inside, I knew we weren't buying clothes.
Yeah.
I was a little tipsy that day too. Apparently, it took me a while to figure it out. But I immediately ran. I ran out of the building. I started running as fast as I could in the opposite direction, and a car approached me, and it was like almost like, you ever see a clown car and like clowns getting out of the clown? There's all these staff members getting out. They grabbed me, pulled me in, and brought me back to the building, and that was the beginning of my intake, which lasted about 8 hours of physical, emotional, psychological trauma and abuse, and was ultimately the beginning of my 2.5-year stay there. And I endured those behaviors and that abuse for that length of time up until I escaped.
2.5 years later.
2.5 years later, when I was 17.
Tell us a little bit about what went on in this place.
Yeah, and this is
beatings. There was psychological abuse. There was.
It's all in the film, but we were in a large white room, no windows, 12 hours a day, and if you didn't do what they told you, sometimes you'll be ultimately restrained on the floor by other kids. And at times I was forced to restrain kids on the floor too. And I was restrained well over 100 times, and I never punched someone. I was never violent, did anything violent to warrant it. It would be a situation like they made us do something that's called motivating, which is flaring your arms in the air all day long in order to get called on. What they wanted to do is keep us in a constant state of exhaustion, so we couldn't really think for ourselves. That was one of their brainwashing control tactics. And if at one moment I decided I didn't want to motivate because I'm tired or this or that, the people around me were encouraged to shove me until I started motivating, or they're encouraged to grab my arms and fling them in the air for me. And if someone was going to shove me and I put my hand up to block them from shoving me, that meant I was being violent. And because I was being violent, I needed to be restrained on the floor. And sometimes I would be restrained there for days. And the restraint was 4 or 5 guys, each holding down a different limb, one leg, arm, one on the head. And the person on the head was taking their hands and forcing them on your face as hard as they possibly could. There were times where, I felt I was seconds away of passing out or, suffocating.
Suffocating and dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, so that was 2.5 years. They told me I needed to dedicate my life to this program. And if I ever left, I would die. It was a cult. They wanted to keep everyone in there forever. Mm. You're a kid, you're an adolescent. I wanted to be better. I knew I needed help. And at a certain point, and I also wanted the abuse to stop, so I bought into what they were saying. I always wanted to be a filmmaker, and they said I couldn't become a filmmaker because it's a druggy industry. And what I needed to do with my life was dedicate it to this philosophy and to this facility. And which is also in the film, my sister was put in, who was 15 months older than me, and she was a little smarter than I was. After a year, she managed to escape. And the moment she escaped, they told me she was on the street doing crack. And they told me if I ever spoke to her ever again for the rest of my life, that I would die because I would go back to using drugs because she didn't support the program. At a certain point, my father stopped supporting the program, and they said the same thing about him. And out of all the starvation, the physical abuse, it was like Orwell's 1984, Big Brother. We were watched 24/7. When we had to go to the bathroom, we were watched. I didn't take a shower in privacy for 2.5 years. When I had to clean myself after I used the bathroom, I had to ask how many squares of toilet paper I was allowed to use, which was usually just 1. But we weren't allowed to read. I didn't read a book or anything for 2.5 years. I was starving to read something. I would read the back of shampoo bottles just because I wanted to read. I was desperate to read.
Yeah.
And that was another control and brainwashing tactic. They had complete control over the milieu, and the only thing we were privy to is their memes of saying that this is the only place in the world that'll keep us sober and alive, and if we left, we would die. And those memes are like viruses of the mind. The second you start to believe them, they could grow to define who we are. Mm-hmm. But going back to my sister running away, I'd say the hardest thing out of all the abuse, the physical, the emotional, was me having to deal with the pseudo fact, what they were telling me, the pseudo fact that if I wanted to have a relationship with my sister, I would go back to drugs. If I wanted to be a filmmaker, I would go back to drugs. All the things that make me who I am, the things, my passions, my loves, if I were to honor that within myself, that would ultimately be my demise. And that's something I could never come to terms with. And my sister wrote a book called Run. It was recently released.
Oh, okay.
And it's her experience running away. And it's a powerful book. And we're going to make that into a film next.
Oh, that's great. So you have a good relationship with her. Do you have any relationship with your parents at this point?
Yes. A question I get asked a lot is, well, if your father didn't support the program, what was the family dynamic? My parents were divorced, and my mom had custody over me, and she was brainwashed too. And that's a part of the story that you don't hear that often. It's easy to understand. Oh, kid getting abused, kid getting raped, kid getting sexually. It's an easy win for someone to understand. But
right.
A harder issue is what's going on with the parents. And in my situation, and the situation at Kids and Kids in North Jersey, and a lot of these places, the parents, first of all, are deceptively marketed to. The facility will ascertain exactly what the parent wants to hear, and they'll regurgitate it back to them. And then once they get them in, they'll do their fear and brainwashing tactics on them. When my mom expressed doubt and thinking maybe this isn't the right place for me, and wanted to take me out, the staff members would scream in her face and say, "Your son will die if you take him out." My mom doesn't want me to die, and that was a big part of the issue. But now, to answer your question, I'll go in chronological order. I'll get to your question about my relationship with my family. Interestingly enough, after 2.5, I believed what they said, that if I ever left, I would die. So even though it was awful in there, I thought, better to keep me in here suffering than to cause my family or my loved ones more pain and leave. And so like I said, for 1.5 years, I believe my sister was on the street doing crack, because she ran away a year into it, and I was there for an additional 1.5 years. And so 2.5 years in, I'm sitting there, I had my eyes closed, and believe it or not, I had a vision, what I believed was from Jesus. And now you could ask me, I don't know where it came from or what it is.
Sure.
And, but at the time, it felt more real than anything I've ever experienced in my entire life. And the vision was, Nick, if you leave, you will be okay. Your sister isn't on the street doing crack. She is graduating high school valedictorian, and she's about to go to college. It's time for you to devise a plan, escape, get out of here, and get on with your life. And like I said, that vision felt more real than anything I ever experienced, and it gave me the courage to escape. And I devised a plan. I escaped on the George Washington Bridge when we were going to a host home. They would take us to these host homes in the evening. That was part of their structure, so they didn't have, their easy licenses to get and their harder licenses to get. And the license that anybody off the street can get is, they weren't prescribing any medication, and we weren't sleeping at the program at night. We were going home to people's houses. And so they were a drug treatment center, but that license, it's so easy to just obtain this thing. So we were going to a host home, and we weren't allowed to look out the car window, and we were supervised. We had staff members, and we were in the back of a van, and the doors are baby locked, which means they can't be opened from the outside. However, I noticed that the front passenger door in the van wasn't baby locked. So I thought, and anyone from New York or New Jersey knows that at a certain point in time, the traffic trying to go over the George Washington Bridge is literally like a parking lot. You're not moving. So it felt like, and because it's also like a parking lot, that means that there's people all around you. So I thought, when we're in that situation, if I could get to the front of the van and just get out, even if I'm not able to run away, and just scream,
help me,
then the cops will come. And so it was the day. My heart was pounding, and I just want to let you know, people have tried to escape, and when they try to escape, the abuse becomes 10 times worse if they're not successful. Sure. So the stakes are extremely high. My heart was pounding. Like I said, I'm not a violent person, so but I knew I needed to get out. So, and we had these books we were writing in, these notepads, and I took the book and I shoved it in a staff member's face, and that was sitting in the row in front of me. And as I was doing it, I'm like, I'm so sorry that I have to do this, but I dove to the front, and I just made it out, and I got tackled to the ground and being restrained, but because I made it outside of the car, it was enough to get people's attention. The police picked me up, and they said they couldn't release me unless my mother came and got me, and she was still very much in the mindset of the program. But it was important to me to not be a runaway. It was important for me to look my mother in the eye and have a sincere, heartfelt conversation with her and say, I'm not the person that they tell you I am or the person I was 2.5 years ago. It's time to move on. So I called her up, and she brought me back, and I did exactly that. I went, took a shower by myself, first time alone in 2.5 years. Out of nowhere, shower curtain ripped open, 3 staff members standing out there. Took me back. And let me let you know, at this point, the place was shut down. And it was shut down for about 6 months at this point, but it was a cult, and they were underground. It was completely operating in people's houses and people's basements. So it was completely illegal at this point, even though the things they were doing were illegal. They took me back, but whatever I said was enough for my mom to get her to realize that, you know, it's time to take him out. And she did exactly that. And you know, that was the beginning of my next journey. A funny thing, because we were both still very much brainwashed, and we thought, I need to be in another rehab. Maybe that doesn't work, that place is bad. So we were both panicked. We went to a place, I forget the name, and the intake was very different. I wasn't strip searched, and I wasn't browbeat and screamed at. My mom was in the room. There was a counselor sitting across from me like you are, and the first question he asked was, when was the last time you did drugs? I said, 2.5 years ago. He said, what are you doing here? We can't take you. You know, you don't belong here.
Yeah, that's right. An honest answer, finally.
Yeah. Interesting thing, the first thing I found out when I got out, my sister was graduating. She just a month earlier graduated high school, valedictorian, exactly like the vision. She never did crack. She never did a drug when she got out.
Wow.
And she got accepted to Columbia University.
That's not nothing. That's something.
Yeah. So I don't know, like I said at the time, felt like Jesus. I don't know what it is now. I'm a spiritual guy. I'm not a religious guy, but it was definitely
a reason to think otherwise.
It was real.
Yeah.
And then what I've learned over my years since being out of there, my journey is, because people say, well, first of all, a year after I got out, I started using again, and using harder than ever, but it was mostly with alcohol this time. And I would literally black out every time I drank. I tried to drink as much, and I didn't remember anything that happened the night before. I would find myself in a lot of trouble. And that went for a couple of years, but now I've been sober for about 9 years now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And people say, well, you're clean now, so did the place ultimately help you, even though it was bad? And my answer is I'm doing well in spite of the program. The thing I learned, and we're all on this journey of life, our experiences, good or bad, define us, and that's what helps us grow and evolve. And for me, what I believe is not just the key to being sober or clean, but I really believe is the key to life, is allowing ourselves to ask ourselves, who are we? What makes us tick? What are my passions? What are my loves? The things they tried to tell me who I was, and the things that I knew instinctively who I was, they tried to, you know, they took away my identity. And they tried to purposely, and they tried to build me up to be another robot in their cult. And you know, I love my family's a very big part of my life. I love them with all my heart, and we're not a perfect family, but I'm very close to my mother, my father, and who originally put me in the place, my sisters, my grandmother.
Right there. Yeah.
Because to me, it's just, that's what's important to me. That's what I want in my life. And if at some point a family member is going through something, God willing, they're not, but if they did develop a crack addiction, I wouldn't turn my back on them. I would give them my complete support and help them. Another thing is filmmaking. They said I couldn't become a filmmaker.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that actually really, where I learned that I need to listen to myself and look inside myself was I tried so many different things to get sober, and then the last thing people call cold turkey, but it was me just trying a different method. And the first thing I did was, oh wait, I remember when I was a kid, I loved filmmaking. I love films, and the first thing I did was enroll in film school,
mm-hmm.
and that was from there I never did a drug ever again because I
film's the drug.
Yeah, film's the drug. Yeah.
That's
but and the other thing, when I was drinking outside of the program, it was because what I learned is I was in so much pain from the trauma I went through that I didn't want to be conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're sober 24 hours, it takes a real man to be sober because you're conscious of it, you're aware of everything, and you have to deal with that stuff. And
that's remarkable. Tell me about the cult. Where do they stand at this point? Are these people still operating somewhere?
Yeah, the interesting thing is, like I said, the place I was in got shut down. It originally was very big. It was originally called Straight, and there's actually a PSA online of George Bush Sr. from the 80s telling parents, send your kids to Straight. And the issue there isn't, I don't know him personally, but I don't believe the issue there is George Bush Sr. wants American families to go through abuse.
No.
What I believe is he was deceived by someone who appeared to be an authority,
mm-hmm.
and said something to him, and he wanted in turn and presented that as the place to go. And it's still an issue today. You have TV personalities who will endorse these types of programs that run by these types of philosophies,
without
saying
knowing anything about it.
Yeah,
it's dangerous.
Yeah, and they're marketed to as well. And then next thing you know, you have a parent like my parent who sees a commercial on TV saying, "Oh, that person's an authority. I should listen. That's probably a good place." And I think one of my messages definitely is for parents to, even if someone is as tall as the president, don't take that at face value.
Check this out.
Do your research. I think that's so important. These places go off of testimonials, but I think there needs to be more
evidence,
of this.
And they need to know more. Let's talk about your second movie, Aaron Bacon.
Yeah, Aaron Bacon.
Yeah, tell me about the movie.
I was doing research. When I did Over the GW, it wasn't just my story. I was doing research. I wanted it to be more than about me. I wanted it to be about this issue. So I did an incredible amount of research, and a book I read was called Help at Any Cost by Maya Salovitz, and it was on the teen help industry. And it's a nonfiction book. One of the stories in it is called Aaron Bacon. And Aaron was in a wilderness camp to cure him of his drug addiction. He was 16. His parents were told that he would be hiking in beautiful desert by day, singing Kumbaya around the fire at night. In reality, his counselors were trading off sexual favors for food. He was starved and abused so harshly. He was only in there for 30 days. First of all, if you looked at a picture, they were mocking him. They took a Polaroid of him 30 days in. And if you looked at him right before he went in, and then that Polaroid 30 days in, he lost so much weight. I'm talking worse of the worst, Auschwitz. And when he cried for help, saying, I need medical help, there's something wrong with me, They said, oh no, you're faking. You're staying right here. At the end of the 30 days, he died. And unfortunately, it's not a unique incident, a unique story. Kids are dying all the time in these places. And what I originally thought when I was in my place, that it was just unique to the place I was in. Yeah. It's an epidemic all around the nation. You know, sometimes they're under the guise of a religious thing, or it could be, oh, we cure the gays in Australia. They were trying to beat the gay out of these kids, and they beat them to death. Two kids died about a month ago. It's absolutely disgusting. So that's Aaron Bacon. That's my second film, and they're both available to watch for free, streaming on my website, nickgaglia.com.
Okay, great.
But they're also available on Amazon, iTunes, you know, Netflix.
So it's Nick Gaglia, which is Gaglia.com.
Yes.
Nickgaglia.com.
Yes.
And you're making it available to the world.
Yes.
That's really nice of you to do.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you're going to make a movie of your sister's story. Is that the next thing?
Yes. Now we're doing Run, and it's my sister's amazing. First of all, the feedback we've gotten whenever anyone reads her book is, the second they put it up, they can't put it down. It moves.
Wow.
You know, it's called Run. There's no forward. There's no preface. You open it up,
and boom.
It's page one, first word, breathe, and she's going, and it's about the moment she runs away and her year-long struggle. And to me, it's a book of, even it moves, and it moves like movies I like. You know, it starts on 60 miles per hour, and it goes, you know, it goes to 200. But for me, it's very much a story of inspiration. Someone who came from something so difficult, so horrific, and said, I want to claim my identity, and I want to get on with my life and become who I was. And
what's your sister's name?
Teresa Pena.
Okay.
Yes.
Teresa Pena, and it's called Run.
Yes.
And you can find out more information about that motion picture, I'm sure, on nickgaglia.com.
Yes.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I'm very impressed with you, young man. You really, despite the horrific experience that you had, you're well-centered, you're well-spoken, you're articulate, you're spiritual, as you say.
Thank you. Yeah.
And mature.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And we expect to hear a great deal more from Nick Gaglia. One day we'll be watching the Academy Awards, and there he'll be. And I hope you tell your story in that minute and a half that they give you.
Yeah, the minute and a half. You know, I do want to say this topic, as we know, when I first started making these films, I was the only one, I felt like, in the media trying to get this story out there. And now there's a lot of people joining the bandwagon. So I want to thank you, Dale, for taking the time and putting it towards the story, because it's very, very important.
It's critically important. And as we said during the last episode that we recorded, children are very special and fragile vessels, and particularly when organizations like this, either cults or those purporting to be religious, abuse children. We need to go to the ends of the earth to put a stop to it, and anything that we can do, we want to do to help.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Nick Gaglia. Once again, he's a filmmaker and an activist. www.nickgaglia. nickgaglia.com. I urge you to watch Over the GW and Aaron Bacon and Run, which is coming up.
Yes.
Looking forward to it. God bless you all. Thanks for watching, and we hope you stick around right here on Keen. God bless.